Hello, Podfam, and hello, Rachel. How are you this evening?
I'm doing okay, Laura, but I've had a bit of brain fog today, and I was just telling you about it before, but I feel like I have to share it with the listeners. This is where my brain is at today. Is when I was making my tea for this evening, I turned on the tea kettle. About 50 seconds later, I thought the tea kettle was done. There was no signifier that it was done, by the way. Like there was no sound that said it was over. So I stopped it, made my tea, and it is lukewarm at best.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I'm just having like an iced tea if iced tea was never in the fridge ever.
Okay. All right. Well, what
Yeah.
what flavor is your lukewarm tea?
It's chamomile and lemon.
Oh,
So
well, you
it's
know
all
what?
right. It
That's
works.
not the
It works.
worst one to have
Yes.
lukewarm because I know, like, when your teapot gets cold and there's a little bit left,
Mhm.
that one's
You
not
know,
not the worst.
it's not like Earl Grey.
No, you can't have like a black tea or like an Earl Grey or a green tea go. Well, green tea's okay, but black
Mhm.
tea cold, oh, it's just
It's
it's
too
just not
much.
right. Yeah, you
It's just
know.
it tastes like something that humans aren't supposed to have.
Yeah.
But,
Like,
yeah,
it's gotta commit, you gotta be either
yeah,
all iced tea or hot tea.
yeah, and, in other updates, I've been taking some bar classes lately,
Mhm.
and let me tell you, those whoop my butt. It's
Yeah,
hard.
I am hoping to
Yeah.
take a bar class maybe next week.
Mhm.
I got waitlisted this week,
Yeah.
and, I would really like to try it out.
It's tough, there's a lot of pulses.
Yep.
There's a lot of pulses, and, it's not just pulses like legs. I'm good with leg pulses, but today she was having us do pulses in a push-up. And I was like, "This is offensive.
I'm
I would
already
like to
dead.
leave now."
I'm
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna be feeling a little bit sore tomorrow morning, but,
Oh, for
that
sure.
means I did something.
Yeah, you know what? Embrace the soreness, right? Because, like, you
Yeah,
worked, so it's all good.
exactly. Is your tea regular temperature?
It's cooled off a little bit, but it definitely was a lot hotter than yours, so
Yeah.
I am winning in that aspect, and I'm actually having a chocolate oat milk latte.
Oh, how
Yes.
fancy of you
Yes.
this evening.
It seems fancy, but really what happened is I had, a little bit of oat milk left,
Oh,
and
yes.
like, it has a long expiration date, but after you've had it open for a while, you're like, I should probably, like, finish this
Mhm.
because it does say, like, best used before 10 days after opening.
Yep.
It's definitely been more than 10 days or about 10
Mhm.
days. So I thought, "You know what? I'm gonna do this tonight," and then that cleans up the oat milk.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because
Love that.
I always get, like, inspired to get chocolate oat milk, but I really don't have it as much as I would, like, a regular oat
Mhm.
milk.
Kinda hard
Um,
to, like, find things to have that with? It's
yeah,
like a nice idea, but
yeah, like, I'll sometimes drink it cold, but really, like, what I use it for is, like, this purpose.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess I had that inkling once, and then I forgot about it, and I was just like, "I gotta finish that."
Yeah, otherwise you're like, "There goes that money for the
Exactly, and it
oat
was
milk."
like, almost half a carton, and
Ooh,
that would have been sad. So, like, I did a taste test first, it tasted fine. Um, so, yeah,
nice.
here we are, having a
Here we are.
chocolate oat milk latte.
Beautiful. And we're gonna be talking about a kind of an odd topic this evening. I don't know, it's not odd, it's just not like anything we've really done before.
No, but I'm so excited for it
Yeah,
actually
me
because I
too.
feel like it's applicable to a lot of people. Um, at some point in most people's lives, they've had a pet or they currently have a pet or they know of a pet that they were like really involved with, so it kind of felt like theirs.
Mhm.
And we just kind of wanted to put this episode to have a little like good service towards those animals who we've loved throughout our lives
Mhm.
because it's just so near and dear to our hearts. Like Rachel, I know you kind of feel the same about that.
Yes, I do. I've had, quite a lot of animals that have touched my heart throughout
Mhm.
my life, and, quite a few that I have lost,
Yeah.
and it still breaks my heart to this day when I think about those last days with them.
Yeah.
But, honestly, like, I think you and I, we're the type of people where with animals, I think also our relationship with horses has really made us this way, where, like, with our horses, like, we bond hard with them,
Mhm. Mhm.
and because of that, and especially I think because we started doing that so young, we bond super hard with every other pet in our life to a point where we're like, "This is my child."
Yeah, like, I remember, like, pretty much from day 1 for me, there's always
Mhm.
been a little animal in the house, mostly cats. My family is big into cats, and then I had a dog when I was around, like, 10 through university.
Mhm.
My mother
I
now
loved
currently has
him.
a dog. Oh, he was the best. He was the absolute best.
Honestly, he's
Um,
ruined me for ever having a dog in the future because he was so perfect that I'm
he was
like,
he was,
if
like, too perfect, right? He was
I
just so
know.
perfect, and, like, it's hard to, like, think about getting another dog because, like,
Mhm.
he was the standard, and that
He
standard was
was.
golden.
And, like,
Um,
that's hard to meet, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
A
and, like,
dog
my
can be
mother has a
good,
dog
but not
now,
that
and
standard.
yeah, and my mother has a dog now, and he is fabulous. He's a fabulous dog, but, just different, right? Just
Mhm.
different. And, I've had wonderful cats. Oh, they warm my heart every time I think about them. And, they're not with us anymore. So I still get emotional about that, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
My dad now has a cute little cat who's been with us for a month. So he's just a
Mhm.
doll. We have Sydney here. And then, of course, I've been fortunate to have some really wonderful horses in my life.
Yeah.
But for this episode, we're kind of going to be leaning more towards the house pets. And I feel majority of that will be centered around cats and dogs. Rachel, I know you
Yep.
have experience with rabbits. So I know you're going to probably touch on that.
Oh, I
Um,
got some ranting to do, let me tell
I know
you.
you do. I know you do. But I do have to say, like, one thing it's this trend on Instagram and TikTok. Oh,
Oh,
no,
I
you
know
know
which
what I'm
one
gonna
you're
say.
talking
You know what I'm
about.
gonna say, don't you?
It
Okay,
hurts me.
so it's the one, and I'm gonna probably like, oh my god, I'm like getting emotional just thinking about it. It's from Inside Out, and it's like the Bing Bong voiceover, so Riley's imaginary friend,
Yeah.
and it was just like, take her to the moon for. Oh my god, I can't even say it.
Oh,
It was the take her to the moon for me, and it's people like showing pictures of like their current animal, and then when that comes over, it's like their old animal that they grew up with. Oh my
I
god. Okay. Oh,
know.
I'm sorry, guys. I am not okay. Oh shit! Now I just spilt my latte all over me. I'm a wreck. I'm
We're
a
off
wreck.
to a great start. We're
Oh
off to a
dear.
great start.
Oh dear. 1 second. Oh no, I'm wearing a white robe too. This is not good.
When she cried too hard, we're only 9 minutes in.
I know. I got like kind of bouncing on my seat here, holding my latte, and it's
Mhm.
everywhere now. Wonderful. Okay. I am back. Sorry about that, guys. I just totally dumped chocolate oat milk everywhere, all over myself
On your white robe.
on my white robe.
Nice.
Whoops. Anyway, that's how emotional I get when I see that. And I love them, but I can like barely watch them because I cry
Mhm.
every time because I immediately think about wonderful animals in my life and it
Yeah.
kills me. It absolutely
Well,
kills me.
you wanna, like, cry a little bit more inside?
Oh, why not?
So, like, well, I mean, we talked about it in the show, but my little bunny passed away, on July 1st,
Hmm.
and ever since we got our little kitties, who, might I add, were born exactly a week after he passed away,
Oh.
um, every so often, ever since we've brought them home, like, we've cleaned this house too. We'll just find rogue pieces of hay on the floor,
Yeah.
and I don't know, I just always like, when I get all woo-woo, I like to think that that's just him stopping by to, give us his blessing. Because I think, my it I always kinda have this feeling when animals pass that, like, it's kind of like they're creating space for you
Hmm.
to take on a new chapter. At least I felt that way when, my horse passed away a few years ago, and it just kind of felt like he was like, "You know what? You guys are good. You're ready for a new stage of life. I'm gonna open up that door for you." And every so often, he just leaves a piece of hay to remind us.
Oh, no, it's so true. I believe that too. Animals never really leave us. They just stay in our hearts. And I've definitely had situations where I've been like, oh my God, I think I just saw my cat or I just saw my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We have three broad categories to talk about here.
Yeah, so let's get started. I think we should begin with before you even get a pet.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's a big decision. Most animals will live for more than 10 years, and you need to make sure your lifestyle is appropriate to be taking in a living being, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
animals are. They are living beings, and we need to make sure that we are giving them the best life possible, just as much as they are going to enrich our lives as well.
Exactly. And I don't know about you, I do not have the lifestyle to have a dog,
I
and
do not either.
I'm not sure I ever will. And as much as it breaks my heart, I've had to accept that. And that's important to accept because like dog I feel like this point especially, like we really like need to kind of focus on dogs because dogs take so much care,
Hmm.
right? And like, you with cats, I mean they do take a lot of care too, but you give them their litter box, their food, their water and stuff. You can kind of come home at night, and if you're really busy, like they can kind of play with themselves,
Yeah,
you
cats
know?
are a lot more independent for sure.
Exactly. Where like with dogs, you have to play with them. You have to walk them multiple times a day, especially depending on the breed. And I just remember an old employer of mine, actually, she had an Australian Shepherd,
Hmm.
which are some of the most high energy dogs in the world. Like they're herders, right? Like
Yeah.
they have a job, they want to go do it. And every time I saw this dog, she was brought into the office and she just would lay there all day.
Right.
And she then started to, and then we're going to get into this later, that because she was kind of bored and couldn't channel her energy elsewhere, she then took to protecting the office.
Mm.
So whenever somebody knocked on the door, she would like charge them. And it's just like certain dogs are all right with like a more less active lifestyle, but then there's others where it's like, you kind of have to be acknowledged, like, can I go for a hike for 1 hour every single day at minimum? Because if you can't, then that's not the right situation for you.
Absolutely. And with dog breeds, there are so many different kinds and with different temperaments and activity levels. And a lot of people, I think they get in their head, I'm going to just use the Australian Shepherd, the beautiful
Mm-hmm.
dogs, like, oh, I want like an Australian Shepherd. They're beautiful, love that, everything about them. But for someone who maybe lives in the city in a very small apartment,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably not going to be the most appropriate dog for you. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many, like if you're dead set on getting a dog, there's just so many more breeds that are better suited to that lifestyle that aren't going to require, the 1 hour, not sauntering down the street, like you're power
Yeah.
walking down the street or you're going to the dog park and throwing the ball for half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to be honest with yourself when it comes to this, because this is where if you get a dog that's maybe not appropriate for your lifestyle, then I think, as awful as it sounds, like that could lead to resentment,
Yeah.
on your part and also on the dog's part, because, you're just not able to connect and provide what needs that it
Mm-hmm.
has. So I think that's like step one, be really honest. My mother, she has a Springer Spaniel,
Mm-hmm.
and, he is a high energy dog. And, she
Yeah.
kind of joked at the beginning. She's like, oh, I think I skipped that chapter on how much energy they have. But
Mm-hmm.
she has the property to
Yeah.
facilitate that kind of energy. So he can be out, he's out patrolling his property, running around all day. So then when he
Mhm.
does come in the house, there's that off switch for him. Like it's
Mhm.
very calm. Like he's never hyper in the house because he's been able to channel that energy outside all day.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, as much as we all want, I don't know, a golden retriever, that was like my dream dog when
Mhm.
I was a young kid. Um, Again, a big dog. another
Mhm.
one that has a lot of energy.
Well, like a perfect example of this is actually huskies
Oh,
because
yes.
everybody wants a husky because they're beautiful, right?
Yes.
And I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I did volunteer at our local humane society a few years back. And the people who'd worked there for a while, they were telling me, like, a lot of huskies wind up in the shelter.
Mhm.
And usually, like, there's quite a few that will come in at a particular time. And it's because of the fact that people will, adopt these dogs when they're puppies because they're like, oh my God, husky is so beautiful, whatever. But like, they don't acknowledge that, like, a dog like that is not made for a city apartment.
No.
Like they are like they kind of need to be outside and they prefer to be outside in the
Yes.
cold.
Yes.
So, there needs to be that run out for them. But there also needs to be the proper training. Like
Mhm.
a husky is not a great first dog.
No, they're
And neither
extremely smart, and they
yes.
know they're smart.
Exactly. And like, other examples are like German shepherds. I've
Yes.
always loved German shepherds.
Oh, beautiful
I
dogs.
like beautiful. I'm always like, "Oh my god, that'd be so great." And I've had to be honest where I'm like, if I'm getting a first dog, it's not a German shepherd
No.
because like I'm kind of scared by bigger dogs in
Mhm.
reality. I'm not going to feel like I can kind of, be the alpha in that situation.
Mhm.
That's another thing about being honest with yourself when you're adopting new animals is like, is the one that you're thinking of getting, are you actually ready for that? And do you have experience that is applicable for it?
Yes, and, I love the adopt, don't shop,
Mhm.
but with that, you really need to read into that dog's background, and this goes for any
Mhm.
animal that you might adopt because, sometimes they do come with a past, and it's
Mhm.
not their fault, like, this is why we're bringing this episode up because we want animals to avoid going through situations where they then get surrendered and they've had poor training and poor experiences because that is very hard to undo. So,
Mhm.
if you are a first time dog owner, you know, maybe taking the one that's had a past of aggression into your home is probably not for you. Like that is for someone who is experienced with training
Mhm.
and like you said, Rachel, they're not going to be afraid as well because that comes up quite often. And
Mhm.
if you have young children, you have to be really considerate because like that's putting your family now in a dangerous situation and the animals because if anything were to happen, it's the animal that
Mhm.
is going to pay the price by potentially being surrendered again or being put down
Mhm.
because it was a threat.
Mhm. And
And
like you have to report like if you
yeah,
got bitten and go to a doctor, those doctors have to report
exactly.
that a
Like,
dog
you
has
go to a
bitten you.
hospital and with a dog bite, it's so difficult, but that is the reality of,
Mhm.
of dog bites. And, even, like you, Rachel, like I'm someone who would probably never adopt a big dog because I'm not scared of dogs. This was kind of, I think, because I had already had like years of experience with horses. So like I'm not nervous around big animals. But
Mhm.
I am kind of wary around bigger dogs because I was attacked when I was about 11 years old.
Mhm.
And it wasn't the dog's fault. He was fantastic all day. It was my cousin's dog. He was a rescue, and he
Yeah.
did have a history of, he grew up with children, and the children picked on him.
Mhm.
So, but since they'd had me, never presented any issues or anything like that. I spent the whole day with this dog.
Yeah.
But then when it came to dinner time, it was just kind of a little switch and this dog's memory came up. I
Oh.
was the only person around who was, you know, little. And
Yeah.
when food became involved, that's probably when his previous family, like that's like children would withhold food from him or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He put his paws up on my shoulders and kind of took me down. Thankfully, like
Yeah.
my cousin was right there, pulled the dog off me, and I was pretty much okay. Like I just had
Mhm.
a bit of a black eye and a scratch.
Yeah.
Nothing lasting, but that could have been. very dangerous had my cousin not been standing right there.
Mhm.
And they were scared for years that I would be terrified of dogs, and I'm not, very fortunately. But I'm like, a
Mhm.
dog that's not trained or um, has like is a little bit bigger. I
Mhm.
kind of stand my ground. I'm just like, no, no,
Yeah.
like I'm not putting up with any of your shit, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's like an important thing too if you are adopting, because that kind of behavior, they have like a name for it, and it's like a resource guarding um behavior that they
mm,
have.
okay, yeah,
And usually they will write, depending on the shelter, like the one that's local to us, they usually do little bios,
hmm,
and they'll write that in. Look for words like that. And
yep,
then when you go in, be like, okay, what does this actually mean?
hmm,
And if you don't mind, I'm going to like switch this to cats
yeah, yeah,
now,
go for it.
because I just went through like an adoption experience, where my partner and we got two little kittens, but we were very like serious where we are like, I think like we want adult cats,
Hmm,
right? And we go in and like we met some lovely, lovely cats. And I think there was like three that we were looking at. And she was like telling us about them and stuff. But, I think with cats, I think there's kind of like a general view of cats that like they're not as complex as dogs. And,
hmm,
like a cat's a cat.
yeah,
But, when you're adopting, they do, and especially when it's an older cat, they do have those past behaviors.
right.
And stuff to look out for is, the adoption counselor was just like, oh, this cat was surrendered because she was starting to have issues with not using her litter box anymore. And I
Hmm,
was like, oh, interesting. Why is that? And she was like, oh, a new baby was in the house. And I'm like, you mean like a new kitten or like a new baby? And she's like, a new baby, like a
right.
human baby. And I'm like, well, my partner and I are like in our mid 20s, probably going
Hmm.
to have children at some point. We need to
In the
consider that.
cat's
We can't.
lifetime, you're very likely to have children.
Exactly. So it's like knowing that she, kind of wanted to be the center of attention and didn't really like when this new baby came into the home. I'm like, well, we can't take her home and then put her through that again
No,
in
that's
5
totally not
years.
fair to the cat.
Exactly. And then
She's
like
better off
another.
with somewhere that is like childless or older people and who are,
Exactly.
not going to have children around.
Exactly. And then like the other one was he was surrendered, and I'm still kind of annoyed about this, but I guess this family surrendered this wonderful cat. He's about 7 years old
Hmm,
because they got a new male dog. So he started going out of the litter box. So
hmm.
they gave up the cat. And I'm like, why don't you just give up the dog?
I
But
know, like you
I'm
just,
like the
oh God.
the cat just gave you 7 years of his life, but okay.
Mhm.
But, with that too, we had to consider, we're like, okay, well, we don't have a dog in the house, but there's a dog on the property
Yes.
and our windows are open all the time. How sensitive is
Hmm.
he to this? Like, if we take him home and he gets a whiff of this dog and hears him because, he barks a fair bit,
Yeah.
then are we just going to put him in the same situation?
Hmm.
And, it was something where we tried really hard to go for an older cat, but like kind of each thing we were like, okay, like we could work with this, but I feel like it doesn't really work for our lifestyle. So we wound up getting the kittens, which were a whole other thing to consider. Because
Right.
now we're like, all right, well, we went from a 7-year-old to 2-month olds who we're definitely going to have them for 13 to 15 years at minimum.
Right.
And that's a whole other thing to consider. So it's, cats are complex too, guys.
Hmm.
A
No,
lot to consider.
it's a very important decision, no matter what kind of pet that you're getting. And the last thing I kind of want to touch on lifestyle here is, you know, are you home a lot? And
Yeah.
this is huge because, my dog growing up was smaller, so he was portable and he literally came everywhere with me. Like we were just a little duo.
Mm-hmm.
And if one showed up without the other, they were like, "Hey, where's where's Laura? Where's the dog?" Um, it, but that was just something we were able to do.
mm-hmm.
But for a lot of people, like now, I work
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always on the road or I'm always traveling, and it would be hard for me to have a dog, especially like a bigger dog,
Mm-hmm.
because it would literally have to come with me all the time. And, I do go places where that wouldn't be an option.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't take a dog to my parents' house, there's one dog already there and that's his house. And then
Mhm.
at my dad's house, there's a cat there and like that's not fair to him. That's his house.
Mhm.
Um, so you really need to be honest with yourself, like how much traveling you want to do. If you're in your early 20s and you're like thinking of going backpacking for 6 months, what are
Mhm.
you going to do with your pet? And this goes for cats
Mhm.
too. Now, cats are like a little more resilient, as we talked about. If you were going away for a night, your cat would be fine. You leave it lots of food and water in a clean litter box, and it's usually like cool with being alone.
Mhm.
Or if you're gone for a week, having someone just check in on the cat is totally fine. But then again, with a dog, someone literally either has to stay at your place, take the dog to their place, or you have to go to a kennel. And that goes
Mhm.
for cats as well. If you're going away for a long time, you probably have to go to a kennel, which is costly.
Mhm.
Um, so
And
again,
traumatizing
yeah, yeah.
for
And
them.
like, I know my cat, the few times she had to go to like the vet clinic kennel, she hated it. So at that time, that's when
Oh.
we're like, okay, you know what? We're gonna have like the neighbor just come by, morning and night to feed her.
Mhm.
Because she was just so much happier in her environment. She could still be on her same routine where she goes outside for the day and then comes in at night. So again, things to consider.
Yeah, and kind of extending this too, if you're thinking of getting kittens or a puppy, if you're getting one that's like 2 months old, they are like babies.
Yeah.
They do take a lot of care. How are you gonna handle that first week? Are you
Hmm.
gonna take a full week off? Do one of you work from home? How are you gonna handle that? Because, especially with a puppy, you can't leave a puppy alone for 8 hours while you go to work.
No.
So, that's also something to consider because I know we're all like, "Oh my god, I want the little babies," but, like, they're babies,
Hmm.
guys. They they're not as babies they're not babies for as long, but, they do take quite a lot of work. I know from experience now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that segues perfectly into our next topic, which is training. This
Oh,
is so
yeah.
vital. So
Yes.
vital. So, where should we start with training? I think I want to start with
Um,
COVID, actually,
okay.
because this is something that's
Interesting.
really come up in the last 3 years. So, when everyone was home during COVID, there was like a run on animals.
Mhm.
Everyone was getting a puppy, a kitten, or whatever. And that was because we were home 24/7. So, we had this time. We weren't going on trips, we weren't going away. But what happened is when the world opened up again, a lot of animals struggled with separation anxiety. You know,
Mhm.
this was this was huge for them because their whole like the majority of their life, they were used to having their humans at home with them. So all of a sudden, when they're gone, this is when they become destructive or just really stressed out and barking or, just panicking, right? Because
Mhm.
they don't know what's happening. So,
Yeah.
if you're getting an animal, you need to commit to the training. And if you're
Mhm.
getting a dog, my number one recommendation is crate train them right from day one. It is so helpful and absolutely vital to be able to have an animal that is comfortable in a crate.
Mhm.
Cats are a little funnier, but like they'll go in a crate and they'll be in a crate. But with a dog, you want to make sure that they're not going to be howling all day or freaking out. You want them to go in that crate and that is their safe spot. All of my animals, like they have their crate and they know that that's a safe spot that they can go.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so important for many reasons. One, if you're going to leave them at home and you're not like confident with leaving them like to their own device around your whole house, they can go in there and, if you know that they're not going to bark and cry, and they will at first, it's just kind of a given, but then they get used to it. You're not going to have to worry about your neighbors calling and complaining.
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about your house getting destroyed. And then whenever, that animal needs to go somewhere or you need to go somewhere and take them, it's so
Mhm.
nice knowing that they can just go in a crate and be
Yep.
okay, right? Like, this is emergency situations, this is for traveling. If someone is looking after them, knowing that they could just go in a crate and be okay is vital.
Exactly. I might get canceled for this, but I am going to talk about both dogs and cats here.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, cat people mostly acknowledge that not everybody likes cats,
Yes.
right? Where I find dog people kind of assume everybody likes dogs.
Oh, true. Yes.
And that's, don't cancel me, but I'm sorry, guys, that's really not the case. Sometimes dogs are scary for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
And, quite a lot of dogs actually kind of freak me out because, similar to you, I did actually have an experience when I was young where a dog bit my face. It was kind of provoked. Thankfully, she didn't have any teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't do anything, but I think it's kind of it's made me scared of new dogs and the reactivity.
Yes.
But where I want to go with this is that both cats and dogs have natural behaviors that can be intimidating
Mm-hmm.
for new people. So for dogs, what I'm thinking of is the jumping up on people
Yeah.
when they see you or walk in. And for cats, it's the when like they lie on their little backs and you're playing with them and they'll like claw your hand and bite your hand.
Yes.
So I'm gonna speak on that, and maybe you can speak a bit on the jumping thing because I've
Okay.
never had a dog,
Yep.
but like with the kittens, it's really cute. Like their teeth and nails don't do anything. So you're like, oh, this is so cute. They're like hunting or whatever, but those kittens get older.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lot of older cats who their parents let them do that when they were young, so that's how they play
Yeah.
now that when you would go to play with them, now they're trying to bite your hand.
Yes.
And I really don't like that. So what we've been trying to do with our two little boys is just stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're kind of rubbing their tummy or playing with them with a toy and they're on their back, if they go to start clawing your hand or bite your hand, just stop playing with them.
Yeah.
Don't react to it. And with cats, that's like the best thing that you can do because if you yell at a cat, they're just going to not like you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to listen to you. So it seems to be working. The other advice is like if you're kind of just around minding your business and they bite your toes, redirect them to a toy because they probably have too much energy and just need to get it out.
Yeah.
But guys, please don't teach your cats to do that. It's not fun for the people coming to your house that are like, why is your cat biting my hand? You know?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, okay, so just going on the dog side now, there is nothing worse than a naughty dog. And again, it's never the animal's fault. It's the owners who don't train them. I personally, I don't know, maybe some people are fine with it, but again, going back to like not everyone is a dog person. And even when people say like, oh, they're super friendly. Well, you know what? Like that is my space. Okay. Like I don't want to walk in somewhere, have a dog jump up on me, have them sniffing me, you know, getting up in my space. I
mhm.
can't stand, like, I really can't stand that actually.
Or
Um,
coming to jump up on you when you're just walking around,
yeah.
like at
Yeah.
the dog park or something, where you don't know if that person has been attacked before. And that
Exactly.
can be scary, just a big dog or even a small dog just coming at you to like put their paws up on you and sniff you, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Or like coming up to you and like barking and that kind of stuff. It can be really triggering for a lot of people.
Mhm,
And it- you just have to be very aware of it because this is then a problem, if you're out in public spaces and your dog is not behaving, it could get you into trouble. All right? Like
mhm,
this is the reality of how the world is that if your dog is going around scaring people or intimidating people, someone could make a complaint, it could get altercation, it could just go so many different ways. So it's something you want to be so careful about. And I find, especially when people have um, bigger dogs and definitely maybe the classic like bully dogs.
mhm.
I actually know someone who raised Rottweilers, and training was their number one priority because they knew that this was an intimidating dog, even though they were the friendliest dogs ever. I think a lot of people just assume, like, oh no, my friend dog is so friendly, like they'd never do anything to you. But if they look scary, no one's going to believe you. They're going to be like, oh my God, that looks like a scary dog. And so, like, they had trained their dogs to, when someone came in, they would lie down and look down at the ground, because they knew with that breed, if they were making like eye contact with someone, humans can also find that very intimidating and
Mhm.
challenging. And so they never wanted anyone to be afraid of their dogs. So they made sure, like, they were like down, and then they would just literally lay down and look at the ground until they were told otherwise.
And
So
that's
I'm not
great
saying people
training.
need to go that extreme with their training, but this is, again, just another consideration of,
Mhm.
your dog needs to be well behaved in public and
Yeah.
and at home too. Like, you don't want them destroying their house, and especially if you are going away on a vacation, you don't want it to be difficult to have someone
Mhm.
look after your dog. You want them to be like, "Oh yeah, no problem. Like, I'll come stay with them. They're such a good dog."
Mhm.
So just keeping things in mind of situations that will come up, and
Mhm.
you don't want to be the person with the untrained animal.
Exactly. Because you know what? Poor listening skills, especially in public, are not cute.
Yeah, and it's also very dangerous. If
It is.
your animal doesn't have a good recall on it and they take off, that's awful.
Mm.
Having a pet go missing, or if they ran out into traffic or something like that and they didn't have a good recall, or they were running after like a squirrel or like a coyote or a raccoon or something like that. Like, these are
Mhm.
situations where it can get very dangerous for your pet. So really, it is in their best interest that they are well trained.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
that is my
I
soapbox
agree.
on training. Do you have anything else on training? Like cats, make sure your cats are litter trained. Oh my God.
Yes.
Because
Honestly, the
you
thing
can
with
always tell
cats.
when you're in a house with an untrained cat. Really untrained animal,
Yeah.
anything. But
Yeah.
make
Most of
sure
the
they know
time,
how to use their litter box and they're not clawing your furniture. Get a little spray bottle with
Mhm.
water.
The funny things with cats, though, is I've learned so far that, with the spray bottle, they're like, oh, when I get sprayed, she's in the room. So
Yes.
that means I just can't do this when she's in the room.
Oh, yeah, no, it's cats.
Like,
Cats are another thing.
they have selective listening. And the
Yes.
thing with this is, we're going to kind of get into health later, but like the thing with cats and their litter box is it's very instinctual for them. So watch for those signals. Like if they know how to use their box and suddenly you're like, oh, this cat had an accident over here. Why is that? Because
Mhm.
usually it's signaling something like, something environmental.
Yes.
Like, do you have two cats and the litter boxes are too close together? Okay, move it.
Mhm.
Um, could it be a signal that they have any health issues? Because that's kind of, animals can't tell you what's wrong.
No.
And for some reason, just it's so great, but cats use bathroom stuff as a way to tell you, hey, I'm
Mhm.
not feeling well.
Mhm.
So just really like pay attention to that and just don't, the Humane Society that we got our kittens from, they had a great resource on this just to say what to do in these situations. And they're like, don't one pick them up and kind of toss them into the litter box because like they know where it is,
Mhm.
but also don't kind of and I could never dream of doing this, which is why it's kind of hard to say, but don't like push the cat's face into where the accident is to be
Mhm.
like that's bad
Yeah.
because that's just going to make them it's
More
not going to do
stressed.
anything, but
No.
then it's just going to make them be like, "Oh, this person's mean to me,
Yeah.
so I don't trust them." So, yeah, pay attention when they are having litter box issues.
Yeah, exactly, and I think
Unless they're just not trained. If they're not trained, that's something else, but, like, if they do know how to use it and then they're having issues, pay attention to that.
yeah, exactly, and I think to, like, round out training is, reach out to resources, go to classes, watch YouTube videos. I mean, I learned everything I know about dog training from a book that I read when I was
Mhm.
a kid, and that
Yeah.
was super vital, and it was
Mhm.
nice knowing that, if I was ever out in a situation, my dog was gonna listen to me.
Yeah. And, like, when you're with your vet, especially, right when you get an animal, usually you go a few times in the first year. When you have the vet in front of you, take advantage of that time. Like, that is your time
Mhm.
to ask them questions,
Yes.
you know? Like, really go in there and be like, "Okay, I wanna ask them about this, 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 and this." And as they're kind of going through their examination and stuff, like keep kind of working those questions in and try to get some information out of them,
Mhm.
because that's a good resource too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just reach out wherever you can to knowledgeable sources.
Yes. All right. I'm
Health.
not sure if I'm going to cry.
Oh gosh. This is always the
Yeah.
hardest one. Okay, let's start with the easy stuff here. So,
Mhm.
healthcare in general for your pet. This is an expense, just like their food is. Anything else to do with the animal, there's an expense attached to it. But healthcare is very important. You need to make sure your pet is getting the appropriate shots, checkups, and medical attention. um I find some people, like, they just find that that's not important, or it's just too expensive, and they feel like they're being had at the vet. No.
Mhm.
Vets care very much about these animals, and they're doing these things for a reason. So, if you're thinking about getting a pet but you don't want to be taking it to the vet, that is not a good, like, getting a pet is not a good option for you.
Mhm. 100% agree, because that's a little breathing creature, and they're a member of the family. Like if you have a child and your child's sick, you're not going to be like, "Oh, I'm not going to take you to the doctor."
Yeah, you can just sit and suffer. You'll be fine.
Yeah, like you'll be fine in the end. So, just keep up on it. Usually the vets will tell you like when you need to take them in. And most of the time, I'm not sure with dogs, but like with cats, you need to take them in once a year to get their updated shots, and that's it.
Yeah,
And
especially if you have, like, outdoor cats as well.
mhm.
There's gonna be things in the environment that they might come across that you'll
Yep.
wanna make sure that they're protected over.
Yep.
And one emerging industry really is pet insurance.
Yes.
Rachel, I know you're kind of a little bit on the early stages of your education journey on this, but what have
Mhm.
you learned so far?
So, great moment. I actually was at the vet on Tuesday of this week. So, a couple days ago. Actually, no, Monday. I was
I
there
was
on
gonna say, I'm like,
Monday.
weren't you? I'm like, Tuesday was
Or
yesterday.
was I there yesterday?
I thought you were there yesterday.
I was there yesterday. Okay. I was there. I'm sorry, guys. I think it's Friday. I have no concept of time. So, I was there yesterday, and my I think she's probably the vet assistant, like she seems to be like vet in training. She just brought up the pet insurance stuff and if we were interested in it. So I really wanted to get the down low on what it actually covers. So essentially it doesn't cover like ongoing care, like examinations or the vaccinations, right? So like you kind of need to take your pet in and give it an exam once a year, give it its vaccinations. It's kind of like you have to do that every year, so they're like, we're not going to cover that. But what they do cover is, like different procedures that come with like illnesses that come up, surgeries, accidents, um, anything that comes up that isn't due to a pre existing condition, which is an important thing to remember, that exists before you get the policy. So, for example, why we're thinking of getting pet insurance for our little guys is because one of them was sick when we first brought him home, and it really freaked us out,
Mhm.
right? And we're like, okay, I would hate to be in a situation where cats have a lot of kidney issues. I would hate to be in a situation where one of them is an emergency situation and it was going to be really expensive and we couldn't afford to pay for it.
Yeah, or
So
there's, like, medication that is attached to it.
exactly.
There's lots of things that can definitely come up.
Yes. So what I do know that they cover is, like surgeries, care for illnesses that come up after the policy date, and also blood work,
Mhm.
which I thought was good because I'm like, that can be pretty expensive, especially in the diagnostic stage of something.
Yeah.
But it is good to start young
Mhm.
before they've had stuff start to happen, because you don't want to wait 6 years and be like, okay, well now my cat's kind of at the time where they might start having some complications, but meanwhile 2 years ago they showed that they might have issues with their kidneys. Now the insurance isn't going to cover anything to do with that moving forward.
Yeah, and then just thinking of, like, life insurance for people, it's usually cheaper to get it the younger you
Hmm.
are. So,
Exactly.
same thing. It's probably gonna be cheaper getting it on a 2-month-old kitten versus a 10-year-old cat.
Precisely.
Yeah, so exactly. You gotta think about that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it really is handy if you have a situation,
Mhm.
your dog gets bit by another dog and needs
Mhm.
stitches and, anything else. Um,
Yeah.
it's nice to know that that's covered, or, they're hit by a car, eh, cancer, the list goes on of potential possibilities. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, it's just a cash grab. And that's where you kind of need to be honest with yourself of just like, okay, if I'm faced with this situation, what is the decision, right?
Mhm.
How far am I able to go? Which is,
Yeah.
it's really hard. Like, and I'm not trying to like make this sound like, oh, it's so easy, just know exactly how far you can go financially. Um, it's a hard decision, and at the
Mhm.
end of the day, you need to do what's best for your pet.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think with the pet insurance stuff, there are going to be some years where like you're kind of just paying for it for nothing. Like
Yeah,
they're not having any issues. But, I was talking to a coworker today where she's like, "Yeah, my dog's 4 years old for the first 2 years." I was like, "Why do we have this?" But the last 2 years it paid for itself
right.
because she was having some issues. And I know like we're kind of going to transition into the sad times
Hmm.
of end of life care, but I kind of want to like do this as a bridge because it applies with just life healthcare for
Yeah.
them. And like trust your intuition with them. Like if you are looking at them one day and you're just like there's something up,
Hmm.
push to get them into a vet and have them checked out. And like don't worry about sounding stupid because when going back to when we brought our little kitten home, he had an upper respiratory infection that turned into a bacterial one. And the day that I took him, I was just like, I don't know if this is bad enough for me to take him. But like he was sleeping the whole day, like he his eyes were leaky. Like, I'm sorry, it's all gross, but like he looked really sick. It was like if you had a really really bad cold, right?
Right.
And I called one vet in the area and she's like, "Oh, call back tomorrow. Just like give him some chicken broth." And I'm like, "This doesn't feel right."
Hmm.
So I called the emergency vet and I honestly said, I'm like, "Should I be worried about this? Do I need to drive him to you and have him checked out right away?" Because especially with emergency clinics, like I don't want to like take time away from a pet who really needs it, right?
Right.
But she kind of put me on hold for a bit and then went back on the phone and she was just like, "Your kitten is literally like less than 2 pounds and he
Hmm.
hasn't been eating or drinking. Bring him in right away and we'll take a look at him."
Yeah.
But if I kept pushing that instinct down of like, "Oh, I need to get him checked out," that would have been a really rough night. Like I think he would have been okay, but I also think it would have took him for a lot longer to get better.
Well, and it's just it's unnecessary suffering as well. And he's so young
Exactly.
that something maybe an older cat could have managed, no problem. But for just a little thing that doesn't even have his full immune system developed, that is really hard. And then that could be when you have a pre-existing condition that then comes up later, right? Just
Mhm.
because they were weakened so young, without any intervention. And I just want to touch on vets for a little bit here because, with so many people getting animals through the past couple of years, it's really hard to get into a clinic. A lot of clinics are not accepting new patients at this time. So
Mhm.
you really need to, look around, call around, and see where you can get your pet in as a regular client. Then they have their information, they go for an initial checkup. Then when there is anything wrong, at least their file is there and you'll be able to get in. You don't want to leave it for an emergency situation and your animal's never seen a vet. They're going to be uncomfortable in that situation and there's no like background or history on them. So that is very important.
Yes. I'm just going to insert a little small animal welfare
Yes.
thing in here because I'm just going to like champion that for the rest of my life. It's very hard to find vets who do small animals, especially
Mhm.
bunnies, because they're just very complicated. So if you do have a smaller pet, find a vet in your area that does service them, understand what their hours are, and build a good relationship with them. But also just vets in general, more of you should learn how to handle small animals because I think they're becoming a lot more popular nowadays, and the care
Yes.
for them, like, I've noticed, especially on Instagram, like, people who have these small animals, they were always kind of, I think when we were growing up, like, they were kinda looked at as, like, pocket pets,
Yeah, it was
you
kinda
know?
like,
Like
it's that long running joke of like, "Oh, the hamster died, so I bought a replacement that looks exactly like it."
exactly.
There was never that thought, even with rabbits, "Oh, maybe I should take it to a vet to see if I can help it." It
Exactly.
was just kinda be like, "Oh, well, we'll let it die and then, we'll get a new one." Where
Yeah.
people nowadays, pets are literally fur babies, and
Mhm.
I think the vet industry kinda needs to catch up to that
Yeah.
and get more training, and I know the vet if you are a vet, oh my gosh, I know many vets, I'm friends with a lot of them, and it's a hard industry right now, there's not enough vets to go around, let alone having specialized training in smaller animals, but
Mhm.
just something to consider, it's if you're able to expand your repertoire into rabbits, there's definitely a market there for it.
Yeah, it would really help out, pet parents so that they don't have to drive 3 hours when their bunny is really sick to be taken care of.
Yes. Rachel, do you wanna elaborate on that anymore, or is that all you wanna say about that?
One thing that I experienced, when my rabbit passed away was I had to call around to a lot of vets in my area, and I do know that one of them did offer emergency after hours care, but essentially I got turned away from them, probably because they knew that with his situation, he was going to pass away.
Mhm.
And that is one thing that I wish, I know it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people for a lot of vets to do, to be really honest, especially with small animals, because, like, there was nothing that could be done for him.
Right.
And I think they knew that, but they wouldn't just tell me. So then I suddenly am driving him 3 hours away
Mhm.
to get care because I'm not just going to sit here.
Yeah.
So, what I'd like to see is, like, in a situation where they probably won't survive, tell the pet parents that.
Yeah, like, be honest and say, like, "You know what? Bring them in and we'll make them comfortable," you know?
Exactly. Or,
Versus
I
being like,
could have,
"Sorry, we can't help you. Keep calling around," to then, yes,
exactly.
drive 3 hours just to have him be put down minutes later.
Oh, well, no, the thing is he didn't even get put down, he just
Right.
passed when he
Yes.
got there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that's what was going to happen, and it's just like, okay, well, if he was going to pass from this, I could have not put him through that stress
Mhm.
of
Yeah,
driving him 3 hours away
you could have just
and
made him
just
comfortable at home.
exactly. So, that's just that's just what I would like to see,
Mhm.
because with small animals, I know that people, we just sometimes don't look at them like cats or dogs, but I know that if it was somebody with a dog who was really sick that day that called, that vet would have been there.
Mhm.
So, yes. I'm not sure what my point with that was, but just, respect small animals, guys. Come on.
Yeah, and I think just acknowledge that if you are gonna get a small animal, rabbit, rodent, whatever,
Mhm.
um, know that there is gonna be that added hurdle of getting them proper care when it comes up.
Exactly. Yeah, like, people have asked me ever since, and, I did enjoy having my rabbit, but they're like, "Would you ever get another one?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not.
Mhm.
Not in this lifetime." I was his champion for as long as I could be, but, like, I don't think my heart can handle it,
Yeah,
like,
knowing, like, you
that
can't just
experience
take them to
again.
the local vet, like, you need a specialist.
Mhm.
And I think that segues nicely into the most difficult part of our conversation this evening, and that is end of life care.
Mhm.
I think animals are very fortunate that we can put them out of their pain and suffering. I think a lot of people probably should have had that option, but the thing is, it is the hardest thing you will ever have to do.
Mhm.
But in hindsight, a lot of the times, it is the kindest thing. And I know the number one regret that I hear from people who have recently had to put down an animal is that, they wish they did it sooner.
Mhm.
Has that been your experience, Rachel?
Not necessarily, because I think with, have had 2 pets in my life that I've experienced having, seeing them being put down, and then, also my horse.
Mhm.
And all of them, it kinda seemed like the right time. Like with my childhood cat, what the intention was that the vet was actually going to come to our house
Right.
and put him to sleep in our space.
Yeah.
So we had taken him home, and it was really just going to be one night, and then they were gonna come to us. But we wound up having to go back to them because we think he had a stroke,
Mhm.
and he was not doing well. And like with the bunny, like he just kind of told me,
Yeah.
like it was so fast. Like he kind of just went on his own.
Mhm.
And with my horse, it was like, she just deteriorated
Yeah.
really, really fast. And, maybe I could have like done it earlier in the day, like when I got there. But like, with, like we said earlier, with horses, it's a whole different game.
Yes, horses
Making
are
that
so
decision.
different.
But I think in my experience, and what helps with this is taking a step back and thinking about their quality of life.
Yeah.
So I know we were going to kind of focus on household pets for this episode, but my experience with my horse is such a perfect example with this.
Mhm.
And like, don't cry. But I actually wound up getting on the phone with our trainer. When you're in the vet office, like there's a lot of words coming at you,
Yeah.
right? Where you're like, I don't know, like, because the vet can't make the decision for you. So they're kind of saying like, well, like you could continue on, but it would mean this, and this, or euthanasia is an option, right? So it's like they're kind of trying to push you towards doing it, but they can't tell you to do it.
No.
So I remember I had called her and I was like, can you talk to the vets and hear what they're saying and then kind of like translate it back to me?
Yeah.
So she did, and then she talked to me and she like kind of put it into simpler words. And then she said, but what's the quality of life going to be if we bring her home?
Mhm.
Because she couldn't walk anymore. Like maybe we could have rehabilitated her, but she would never run again in
Mhm.
the field. She would never be able to be ridden. She would never jump again,
Mhm.
which were all things that she really loved to do.
Yeah.
So she's like, she'll be here, but is she living a life?
Mhm.
And I was just kind of like, no, because, my memory of her was like when you would be driving past her on the way to school or work, she would be in her field, her head was high up in the air, and she was running around.
Yeah.
So obviously, like making the decision for her to keep her, to not make that call and have her stay would have been great for me because my horse is still here,
Mhm.
but it would be not great for her. And in that moment, you do have to put their best interests first and think, what is the life that they deserve and want to have?
Yeah, no, and that's where it's really hard, and we as hard as it is, we have to be really brave about it, and, I do know of a situation that's kinda associated in people I know where, there was a dog, and she was very old. She was deaf and blind and a little senile,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, she had hip issues and other mobility issues, and, like, still the owner didn't wanna put her down because she thought it was just gonna be too hard, and, the dog ended up having, um, a stroke and, like, just was totally listless, and it was so hard. Like, I was actually very angry at the time just because that's not how I was raised to care for animals, and eventually, the dog did go peacefully, and, uh, it was the best situation. But
Mm-hmm.
that is one of those situations where it was just like, this poor little creature was begging to go a lot earlier because she had zero quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was very painful for her to live. She wasn't eating or drinking or anything like that for the past, like, probably almost week of her life. And that's just, I can't even stomach that. But that is just different upbringings, I think, with
Yeah.
animals. Like, I was pretty much raised on a farm where life and death was just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as hard as those decisions are, you kind of understand more that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have that quality of life anymore, and that is in their best
Yeah.
interest to let them go, as hard as it is to have them leave.
Mhm.
That is just the reality of being a pet owner. Like, this is the responsibility that you have, and you need to be okay with it. If you're getting a pet, you need to be okay with making this decision. Um, when we lost my dog, it was my mom, because I was away at school, who had to make that decision. And, he had Cushing's disease and some arthritis. So he was getting very uncomfortable. And, she took him to the vet and said, do we make him comfortable with like Medicaid, or was it Medicaid? Um,
I don't know.
anyway, a prescription, like prescription medication.
Mhm.
Um, and, what's next with him? And they were like, honestly, he's the next thing is renal failure for
Mhm.
him, and he's going to start having a really hard time. And so she's like, you know what? I love this dog too much.
Mhm.
And then, same with my cat growing up. She was not able to swallow anymore, and like, just
Mhm.
you could just tell, like, she was not vibrant and full of life as how she used to be, and was really struggling.
Mhm.
Um and again, that was a situation where, as hard as it was, that was the kindest thing. She lived a wonderful life and lived to a ripe old age.
Mhm.
And as soon as she wasn't able to, do the things that she loved anymore, or really be comfortable, it wasn't fair anymore. And
Yeah.
then, I have just my horses right now, and I do have one that is a senior. He's in his 20s. Um, he has arthritis, but like right now he's happy and, looks great for his age and all that kind of stuff. But like, there is a plan for him for,
Yeah.
the day that, he's having issues eating, or like, can't get up anymore. Like, I'll pick a sunny day and put him down, because that's what
Mhm.
I owe him.
Yeah.
So that's just where I hate seeing like these poor animals just like
I
decrepit
know.
and hanging on literally for dear life.
Yeah.
And people just like won't do anything about it. It's just
Uh,
so not fair. And like, I've seen it before. Like, the most awful thing is like, you go out to a field and you can't get a horse up, right? Like,
yeah.
it's awful, and it's just because they were left too long, and so they really
Mhm.
had like their final moments were quite awful, instead of being comfortable.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm gonna say something, and I
uh
might sound like a bitch,
okay.
but I'm not sorry. And I know that this is just a difference in upbringing thing, but
Mhm.
as pets do not exist to service you,
No.
And I've had, um, I did not grow up this way, and I had an experience that was very shocking to me where when somebody's pet passed away, they were like, "Oh, that's so sad." Like, they were such a lovely pet. They would just cuddle me all the time.
Mhm.
And everything they were saying was about how their behavior just benefited them. It wasn't anything about, like, the pet itself,
Yeah.
like their personality or the life they lived and stuff. And I think that, um, I think that's, like, human nature. I think we kind of, like, take support from our pets,
Mhm.
but they don't exist just for that. And I think people hold on to them for a long time when they shouldn't because of that reason.
Right.
But that's not respecting the actual living being that
No.
you have taken the responsibility for,
No.
and you kind of need to take yourself out of the equation and be like, yeah, I'm going to be freaking sad.
Mhm.
But like, probably my animal who is not living a life and is in a lot of pain is also probably not very happy right now.
No. No.
So why would I continue putting them in this situation just to benefit me for a few more months?
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, respect them.
Yes.
Thank
Respect
you.
your animals. Love them dearly while you have them.
Yep.
I'm just silently crying here. Don't mind me.
Don't worry. I didn't think I was gonna make it through talking about my horse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was like honestly. like the worst day ever.
Yeah.
I've had, I don't know, as we talk about horses, our listeners who don't ride horses are like, what are these girls talking about? But it is something that is like, I don't know, you have such a soul connection with horses, especially, that it just makes it so hard.
Yeah, and it's like the same with any animal, like if that's your
Mm-hmm.
pet and you love them, like that's your family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so hard, and thank you guys for really listening to this episode and sticking with us if you're still here. It's been something we've been wanting to record for a really long time, just because we've experienced a lot, we've seen a lot, and there's things that we like and what we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and we hope that maybe you took something away if you were really considering getting a pet, and maybe this kind of refocuses you a little bit to um, something that is very much suited for your lifestyle, and then also made you consider some of the hard calls you're going to have to make, because it is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Our animals touch our hearts forever, but they are only here for a short time, so you just need to be prepared
Yeah.
and okay with making these kinds of decisions. I'm trying to turn this around so we don't end on such a sad note. I don't know. I've loved all of my animals that I have, and I honestly could probably write like an adventure series on every single one of them, because they've all been such
Mm-hmm.
characters and they all like stand out in their own rights. It's impossible to ever pick a favorite,
Mm-hmm.
because they're literally like they were all my children. So I just love them all so dearly, and any future animals I have. I love animals. I just hate to see any of them ever suffer, and I want them all just to have like a good life and be well trained, and yeah,
Not jump up on you when
not
you come
jump
in
up
the
on
door.
you and be crazy, attack you.
Yeah. And like those TikTok or real thing, I like to think that the animals that came before send the animals that we have now.
Oh God, don't start. I can't think of Bing Bong right now. Okay, I just I'm barely
Bing
hanging
bong.
on as it is. We can't,
Ah,
don't no one take him to the moon for us right now. Okay, I just not okay.
no, honestly, like, did I get little kittens that day because there were reasons why the older ones wouldn't work out? Or was I just like, I think I just want to make that day as far away as possible? I'm somewhere in the middle on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think people know which like reference we're talking about here?
Inside Out, Pixar.
Yeah, should I play it? Just to
No.
wreck everyone's day. And everyone knows what we were talking about. This is the one.
You made it! Go save Riley! Take her to the moon for me, okay?
All right, so we all sufficiently broken?
Fuck that.
All right. I'll know whether that made it into the final cut depending on Rachel's mood.
Depending if I'm feeling sentimental or not.
I know. You're going to get to that part and be like, fuck you, Laura. Why'd you do that?
Well, if you guys enjoyed this episode or, cried your way through it, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. We'd love that. And if you want to talk to us directly and share any cute stories about your animals from the past and present, please send us an email at teawithlaurarachele@gmail.com.
And with that, live like tea.
Live like tea.